One. Well, hey, Dave Melenda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I have a question for you, like I generally do. And I want to know, why did you jump into being an entrepreneur in the first place? So it's kind of a rhetorical question, but I do want you to think about it, because some people, like, they can't help themselves, right? They just have to be an entrepreneur. Other people, they just want that freedom that they think that being a business owner, entrepreneur actually brings them. And I
Mhm.
want to focus on those people today, the people that thought there was freedom. My question to you is, are you free like right now? I mean, would you be able to take the rest of the week off? Would you be able to fly on an airplane somewhere? I mean, what type of freedom do you have? And I'm honored to be hanging out with a guy that's a superhuman CEO, Adam Lucero. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good. Excited to be
Awesome.
here.
Yes, for sure. So your company is Superhuman CEO, and it's superhumanceo.com. So why don't
hmm
you fill us in on what Superhuman CEO is?
Yeah, it's essentially a way to help you regain your freedom, whether it's in terms of time that you can spend with your family or even the financial freedom so that you can take them to travel and stuff. But here's the thing, if you're anything like me, you became an entrepreneur because you want freedom. But what happens is through this journey, you start to realize that that freedom that you aspire to attain, well, kind of gets put on the back burner. You're so swamped in your business, or even when you have free time, well, guess what? You're still thinking about your business, things that need to get done. And that affects your ability to be present with your family and create memories that they will cherish for a lifetime. So essentially, our goal here is to help you grow your business while you work less, so you have that true freedom. So you don't sacrifice your family time. So you don't have to be burnt out.
Wow, that's awesome. I remember my parents live in San Diego, and when my dad was alive, I would fly out there for some R&R, and I'd bring my
Mhm.
laptop, and I would open up my laptop, and then I would start working. And my dad was like, "What are you doing?"
Mhm.
And even on vacation, it was like, I don't know if it was like a badge of honor I was looking for, Adam, but
Mhm.
I appreciate the fact that we as entrepreneurs, we need to be able to unplug. We need to be able to have that freedom. And like you said, that's probably a big reason a lot of people jumped into it, was
Mhm.
because they wanted that freedom. I want to choose my own hours. I want to work when I want. I want to work where I want. People envision sitting on the beach, with a laptop, and hey, no problem with that, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you talked about three things, like eliminating overwhelm. You talked about maximizing profits, and you talk about reclaim your time. And those are some really powerful statements. So I kind
Mhm.
of wanted to unpack those today with you. For the entrepreneur listening right now, Adam, that is overwhelmed. Maybe
Mhm.
they're listening to this on the subway, on the way to work. They're listening to it while they're, trying to squeeze in a workout. Chances are a lot of entrepreneurs are not just sitting listening to us. They got to
Mhm.
multitask, right? What do you share with people that to help them with eliminating that overwhelm? What are some simple tips that we can do?
Yeah, so it ultimately kind of depends where or why that overwhelm is there in the first place. Is it because you have so many different tasks? Is it because you're bad at managing your stress? So it kind of ultimately depends on like the source and the reason behind it. But I would say like one of the biggest reasons for this overwhelm for most entrepreneurs is because they have so many different tasks. They don't know what they should be focusing on, prioritizing, and they're wearing too many hats. It's the most simple way to put it. So it's
Yeah.
really getting them to step into more of that CEO role rather than the solo entrepreneur, early stage entrepreneur, where they're posting on their social media, they're editing their videos, creating the graphics. It's like, look, your time and energy isn't best spent that way. It's like, you do ever
Yeah.
see Elon Musk installing solar panels or Tony Robbins setting up his stage? It's like, no, because they know their time and energy is better spent on CEO level activities that grow their revenue, maximize their profits. And so that's ultimately one of the key ways to grow your business quicker while working less is obviously the power of delegation and building a team. But obviously it's easier said than done, right? I mean,
Sure.
whether it's because you have limiting beliefs and you don't want to give up that control, you don't feel like they're going to do the same quality work as you, or maybe it's like you just don't know what you should be delegating or how to hire a team that will actually fulfill it with good quality, how to track KPIs well. So many different aspects to it. But I would say the number one is, yeah, you just got to start getting to a point where you delegate everything you possibly can.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And I think that's a big blind spot. I'm working on my next book about business blind spots. And, it's crazy. Like you say that to people, and you would think that they would glam onto that. You think they would, be both hands raised in the air. Thank you, Lord. This is awesome, right? And people resist that. You don't know my business, Adam.
Yeah.
You don't know my team. You don't know how complicated this is. I mean, there's always these excuses that come rather than accept what he just said. And I'm guessing there's people listening right now that are doing that exact same thing. They're resisting what just got said. Delegate is a great way, like Adam said, because let's face it, early in our entrepreneur journey, we may have to wear all the hats because we don't have money to pay a graphic guy. I get that. That is a hide behind a lot of times, because realistically, you probably, again, I don't know what the numbers are. If you're worth $500 an hour and you can find somebody to do your graphics for $50 an hour, there's like a 10x return just in that spot. But it's eliminating that overwhelm. That's a great place to start, is with that delegation. Do you tend to come alongside people at Superhuman CEO to help them with those blind spots, if they have those?
Yeah, so we pretty much have a system in place where, first of all, they have to get clear on what are the activities that they can delegate, right? And then two is like, okay, what are the bottlenecks in your business? Because delegation is only effective if you use your time and energy more efficiently that you've now freed up, right? So we have to discover what are the bottlenecks that are slowing down your business growth or decreasing your profits, right? So once we know what you should be delegating to free up your time, we figure out how do you best utilize your time. And then three is like, we focus on the activities that actually produce revenue. So we have a system that really helps them walk through this process to get clarity on this. And then obviously from the next point is we either help them onboard a team or we teach them how to do it themselves.
Yeah. And that's, I think, a big blind spot again, is people feel like they have to have a full-time person doing X. And there's so many fractional CEOs, fractional HR, fractional sales managers. There's so many, people that come alongside will help you, that you don't have to, feel like, you have to have all this on staff. I love companies that are nimble enough, that have 5 or 6 or 10, people that are working together. They're not necessarily on their payroll, but they're able to attack these projects. And I think that's a brilliant statement to say Tony Robbins is not setting up his own stage.
Yeah.
And, that's so smart, but yet we probably don't give ourselves enough credit, thinking that we have a powerful message like Tony Robbins. So then we think, well, I have to do this. So where does the mind come in this? I know that you talk about that. Where does that come into play here?
Yeah, it's definitely a huge aspect of it. And so it's like, that's really phase one of our whole program, is attaining more of that 7-figure mindset. We like to say, get the perspective, thoughts, and behaviors of a high performer, right? And so again, it's like, you just kind of have to, again, a lot of this really comes into play too, is once you start showing them like, okay, well, if you spent 2 hours doing this instead of creating your graphics, you're gonna be able to generate this much more. So a lot of it's just getting the clarity, and then like some of those like limiting beliefs kind of dissolve. But yeah, what we always say is like, look, unless you perform like a 7-figure entrepreneur, you're never going to have a 7-figure business. Like you have to be that 7-figure entrepreneur, do the things they do, then you'll have the results they have. And so most entrepreneurs have it backwards. They're like, oh, if I had $1 million, I'd do this and I'd be this type of person. But it's like, you're never going to get the $1 million unless you're first being that 7 million or that 7-figure entrepreneur first.
Sure.
And so you have to perform like them. It's like, if you want a 7-figure business, do you think those entrepreneurs are creating their graphics? Do you think they're posting on social media? Do you think they're doing all? No, they're not. So again, if you want the same results of them, you just have to correlate the same actions and behaviors and the thought patterns that they have. So we have a process that kind of gets you to operate from this more powerful place. And to your point, you're saying like, oh yeah, earlier they might have more of these excuses and victim mentality. It's like, look, do you think most 7-figure entrepreneurs make excuses for why they can't achieve the results they want? Or do you think they find solutions? Obviously they're responsible and they find solutions. Because what happens when you make excuses like, oh, I don't have the money to hire these people. Well, it's like, okay, how is holding on to the belief that you don't have enough money, you can't be resourceful enough, helping you get your business and life to the point you want it? It's not. It's just enabling you to succumb to this mediocrity where you feel overwhelmed, burnt out, stressed. So it's like, even if you believe that to be true, why do you want to operate from that place that's limiting you and your business? So again, it's a lot of times just getting them to step into their power is how I like really describing it. But yeah, definitely mindset's a huge shift depending on like what level you're at, you know?
Yeah. And I think, Adam, there's so many people that are listening that are they're so like their heads down and they're worried about making payroll, or they're worried about finding the next customer. They're working, in the business rather than on the business. Everybody's that, where, hey, I'm too busy. I can't lift my head up. Right. And as we near the end of the year, as a business coach myself, my clients and I are already working on 2024 budgets. It's funny because some people are like, budgets, it's only October, right? And it's like, oh my gosh, well, what are you going to wait for, like January, February? So we kind of help people kind of lift their head up. And your second one is maximize profits. It seems like an easy fix, but I'm guessing there's another blind spot because we don't see where we're wasting money, or we don't see where we're missing revenue. So what suggestions for an entrepreneur listening do you have when we talk about maximizing profits? Are there any easy places to start?
Yeah, so it obviously depends a little bit on kind of like what the businesses that we work with are, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, for example, if someone's entire lead generation and sales process all stems from paid ads, it's like, okay, well, what can we do to decrease the cost per lead? Because if you can cut the cost per lead by 30%, that's literally 30% boost in your profits. Or maybe we just keep going through your lead gen and sales process. It's like, do you have a show up rate of 40%? Well, if you increase that to 70%, you just, again, boosted your entire revenue and profits essentially by 60% or so. So again, it really just depends on like the nature of your lead and sales generation process, your fulfillment process, and just looking for ways to optimize every aspect of that. So again, that's ultimately the best way, like a good place to start. But then also it's like, just look at your expenses, your costs, see what's really where all your money is going towards. Are there ways you can improve this? And a lot of the times it's like just really analyzing where your costs are going, and then brainstorming on solutions for that. It's like, it really just boils down to that simplicity of it.
It's crazy to run across people around the country that don't use a P&L. They get them once every 6 months, or maybe they just do them once a year. And I'm like, it's like a dashboard to know if how I'm doing, where to reinforce the wall that's caving in, where to, enjoy my victories. It's really hard. I don't know. What's your suggestion for someone listening that doesn't do a P&L on a consistent monthly or quarterly basis?
Yeah, I would just say you just have to have your data clear. And so whatever works for you in terms of being able to do that is really important. But it's like, when you look at it's like the same thing. Like when you look at the most successful businesses in the entire world, they all know their data. So it's like, and this is something that took me a while to realize for myself too. So I get it. But at the end of the day, to make educated decisions, you need the clear-cut data. And so, yeah, what I recommend is like spending a little bit of time and getting a resource that's going to help you kind of track all this data across every platform that you're using or whatever it may be. So I definitely think it's very important, especially as you start getting to bigger scale and start growing your company, because that's going to show you where the bottlenecks are, how to maximize your profits a little bit more. So yeah, and it's like there's tools you can pay for like $97 a month, and then you just get all this clear data, and just like your business is going to be like, the ROI on that $97 investment is just huge. And not only in terms of profits, but then like how you can manage your time and stuff too. So
yeah, that's so important. And again, some people, what's the saying? You step over you trip over a dollar to pick up a nickel or something like that.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to spend money, and I'm not here to say you have to spend money. But like you said, if you can spend $97 a month and you can have a crystal clear roadmap on where you're going, where you've been.
Mm-hmm.
It just is so, number one, peace of mind is
Mm-hmm.
worth $97 a month or whatever, whatever the expenses you need. But as we go and jump into the third one, how do you reclaim your time? Because I think the biggest problem that us entrepreneurs have is we want there to be 30 or 35 hours in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we don't have that. So how do you suggest we reclaim our time?
Yeah, so again, it really just boils down to the delegation process and figuring out what tasks you can delegate and then building out a team to do that. That's where the vast majority of it's going to be. The other aspect that can kind of impact that is what we always say is we like helping our entrepreneurs, not just on the business side of it, but we want to help boost their energy levels, their mental alertness, so that when they wake up, they're thinking clearly, they make better decisions, they're more motivated, they're in this place of clarity and creativity, right? Because the example I like using is like, look, we all know how much more productive you are when you wake up and you got a good night's sleep, you're fully rested, ready to go, versus those days when you're exhausted, you're not thinking clearly. It's like in the same 2 hours of work, you produce like 3 times like 6 hours worth of work rather than like 2 or 1 hour's worth of work if you're exhausted. So a lot of the times it's like getting you to be at this place where you're full of energy, you're thinking clearly because you're just a lot more productive and thus you accomplish more in less time. So that's also another way you can kind of angle it. That also helps with the burnout too. It's like so
Sure.
many entrepreneurs get to the point where they finish their workday. Well, and guess what? They're so drained energy, emotionally, physically, that they can't spend time with their loved ones. They don't feel like it. They just need to recharge for the next day. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like a 2-for-1 piece. You're going to be more efficient, make more money, and then also feel good so that you can spend your time and energy doing the things that you actually enjoy doing. It's not all just focused on business. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that aspect. And then again, just kind of the delegating and hiring process, building out systems and processes are probably the two biggest ways you can reclaim your time.
And I think you bring up a really good point, Adam. And I think about, just because you pick a number, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, doesn't matter, right? You come home, and if you're so spent that you are like of no value to your family,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really say, hey, I was home last night.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is kind of like it's an oxymoron to think that, hey, I was home, but I was sleeping or I was vegging on the couch. I couldn't
Yeah.
move, you
You're
know.
not really present.
Yeah, exactly. Just because you're physically there doesn't mean you're emotionally there. So when we come back from break, I kind of want to unpack your journey and see where you were in and how this is helping you. So we'll be right back. Awesome. So thank you again for hanging out with us, and Adam. And I'm curious, so for you, have you been in corporate America, or did you start as an entrepreneur, your journey right away? Kind of fill us
Mm-hmm.
in on how that is for you.
Yeah. So since growing up, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And in middle school, I would go buy candy at the 99-cent store, flip it. And then in high school, I would flip electronics. And then in college, I started a moving business, even though I knew nothing about the moving industry. I just saw someone that was a really bad entrepreneur making decent money. I was like, I even know I could run a business better than you, so I'm going to just do it.
Nice.
But anyways, upon graduating, I actually accepted a sales job in Northern California. And so, like 2 weeks before the job started, I was out there looking for housing. So, super last minute. Now, I was staying at my aunt's place because I didn't really know anyone in the area. She tells me, Adam, you got to be out of the house for 8 hours on Wednesday. I have clients coming over. So, I'm like, okay, don't know anyone. I got to kill time. I'll go watch a movie by myself. Now, I go there. It's like a Wednesday, 2 p.m. Movie starts. And, you know, my eyes are glued to the screen. And then all of a sudden, I feel a hard hit to my throat. And my initial reaction was like, dude, this person hit me hard. And so I stood up. I was like, what the hell, man? And then I felt another punch to my arm and chest. So then I turned around and I pushed this guy. And as I push him, I feel a cut on my wrist and ear. And instantly I realized, I was like, this guy didn't punch me. He stabbed me. So I started yelling, I've been stabbed. I've been stabbed. The lights turn on. I see him run away. I'm bleeding out. So this guy stabbed me with a chef knife, the ones that get bigger, closer to the handle. It went
Wow.
halfway through my throat, like literally halfway through my throat, punctured my lung, and went so deep in my arm, it almost went out the other side. So I'm gushing out blood rapidly. I take off my shirt, wrap it around my neck, and I'm just holding the blood in. And so these two older women come running up. They're like, what should we do? I tell them, just put pressure on my neck, hold the blood in. And then I hear someone say, should we call 911? I lose it. I'm like, as I'm sitting there lying on the floor, bleeding out in the movie theater, I yell, yeah, you should call 911. If you don't call them in this situation, when would you? Like, more cussing in there, but like, I was just so angry. I was like, are you guys kidding me? Like, nah, I'm good, dude. Just give me some band-aids. I don't need 911. Like, get out of here.
Rub some dirt on it there,
Yeah,
Adam.
yeah, we're chilling. No need to bug
Yeah.
those pesky 911
Oh,
people.
gosh.
So paramedics get there and they start asking me all these questions. What year is it? What's your name? And I get it. They're making sure I'm conscious, aware.
Yeah.
But I'm just so annoyed. I'm like, can you guys just shut up and save my life right now? I don't want to be answering these questions. And so I'm like, all right, let's get him up on the stretcher. So they tossed me up on that stretcher, and it was so painful because I don't have the adrenaline in my body anymore. So like, I felt my wounds so deeply. Now they start carrying me down all the rows of chairs and the steps or whatever it may be. And it was the most excruciating pain I've ever endured. I remember just holding on to myself, like looking at the ceiling like this, like trying not to scream my guts out. I was like, holy shit, this is so painful.
Wow.
And so we finally make it to the ambulance. And I remember like, okay, the paramedics got me. I can start to relax. And as soon as I get that thought, I feel a cold rush through my entire body, and it dawned on me. I lost a lot of blood. I could definitely die here. Yeah. Then I see them come over with this oxygen mask, and I remember thinking, don't fall asleep. You're not supposed to fall asleep in this situation. They put it on my face, and I knock out. I wake up 7 days later from an induced coma, and I'm living off tubes. If you unplug them, you unplug my life. And it was crazy because after 7 days of my body just being in that position, it like forgot how to work. So first of all, I used to be 170 pounds, 6 foot tall, like 8% body fat. So like pretty jacked. Yeah. Now I'm 132 pounds or somewhere around there, sticks and bones. Like my body's not nourished. I could feel my body weak from the inside. Like I started to understand how people who are actually starved, like I had that concept of like how they actually feel in their body. Besides that, I couldn't think clearly. You could say, Adam, I'll give you $5,000 if you tell me what like 10 times 12 is. I wouldn't be able to do it. Like I just literally felt stupid. Like my brain just didn't process information anymore. Yeah. And I was so exhausted all the time. Like after a few weeks when I could eat normal food again, I would have to nap. I would eat half my meal, fall asleep at my plate, and wake up again and eat again because eating exerted that much energy. Things like, oh, getting up to use the bathroom. No, it wasn't like, oh, I need to use the bathroom. It was like, oh shit, dude. Like, here we go. Like, got to get up and get to the bathroom. This is a mission, you know? And so the worst part was just what happened to my confidence. It disappeared like a quarter in a magic show. I started questioning, can I still run a business where I help others? Or is my potential destined to rot away with my ambitions? So I spent the next few days contemplating this, but then there's this moment I had where the nurse was like, Adam, do you want to try getting up and using the bathroom? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. I want to get my life back on track. Yeah. Get to the edge of my bed. My legs don't work anymore. And I just remember being so pissed off. I was like, I used to be a Division I track athlete, and now my legs don't work like that. I just felt pathetic. I was like, you know what? No matter what, I can't change what happened to me. All I can do is choose how I'm going to respond moving forward. So in that moment, I decided to do whatever it takes to build myself up again. So I started learning, okay, what kind of workouts and foods can boost my energy levels, my mental alertness. Started eating those types of foods. I started doing all my physical therapy. I started studying a lot on like human performance just as a necessity to build myself up again. I mean, you can see all the books over there. Most of them are on human performance. And so it really is just day by day, week by week, month by month, building myself up again. Now, within 1 year of being stabbed and my legs not working, I ran a 4:59 mile. I was putting up great weight in the gym, and I was in a good place mentally again. So fast forward another 6 years now, essentially I help entrepreneurs optimize their performance and their productivity so that they grow their business and have more freedom in their life.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I've been stabbed. I wasn't expecting that. Curious. Everyone around the world is wondering right now, did they catch the guy?
Yeah, so he's in jail. The cops were actually looking for him when he attacked me because 2 days prior, he stabbed a homeless man 50 times while the guy was sleeping. So he was schizophrenic and in his own world. And I actually have no hard feelings. Like I wish the best for him because what happened was obviously there was a court case, but he couldn't be part of it because he was ruled insane, right? And so he worked with psychiatrists, therapists, whoever it may be. And after a
Sure.
few years of working with them, and he regained consciousness. And when he did, and he found out what he did, people told him, he felt so bad that he pled guilty. And it just goes to show like his intention, him as a person is just like, I feel like he's actually a good person. It's just, he was battling his own demons. It's like, dude, who's to say
Yeah.
if I wasn't homeless and had access to terrible food, terrible water, wasn't taking care of my health, I wouldn't have the same mental health issues as him. The fact that when he regained consciousness and he pled guilty because he felt bad shows he had remorse. And so I have no hard feelings for him. Like, I hope he has like a good rest of his life and is able to overcome what he did to the other person and me. So
Wow. Oh my gosh. 7 days of tubes, huh? And you were in a coma. Wow. What do you remember of that?
yeah, so some parts of it. So first of all, I was like I would like to say like tripping because that's like it's an induced coma. So heavy chemicals did knock me out with some of the most potent, gnarly stuff. And I
Yeah.
remember like there were some moments like I was hallucinating so bad, and there was always like deathly experiences. Like I remember thinking one time I was on in the ICU on my bed, and I remember thinking there was like thousands of deadly scorpions on the floor trying to get me. And so like I was just sitting there for what felt like hours, and I was like in my bed, I was like, I can't move. Another time it was like I really thought part of the ceiling in my ICU room was blown up, and there was like ships almost like Star Wars and like a huge battle going on, but I was like, things are falling on me, I'm trying to dodge it. Like it was all these crazy vivid
Wow.
experiences that were like all like I was just felt like I was about to die type of scenario. um yeah, I couldn't speak, and so like I'd wake up and I'd have to kind of like write some things down. The first thing I actually wrote down was, do I at least get a refund on my movie ticket? So I was in a at least in a pretty decent spot that way.
Oh man. Well, they must have known you were going to be okay when you're starting to crack jokes like that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, how does that help you then? I mean, that experience is so traumatic. How does that help you then work with entrepreneurs? Because where have you found some connections between all that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a pretty just straightforward and honest guy. And so when people hear my story, it's like, it helps because I'm like, bro, you're not in a worse situation. No matter where your performance is, your productivity, I was like, you're not in a worse situation than I was. Like, if I could build myself up to this point, I can help you get there too. So
Yeah,
I would say that's probably like the biggest thing. But also the second thing is like, in terms of my own regard, is like, nothing can knock me down. What am I going to face in life that's been harder than that? Like, if I can get through that, everything else that's coming my way, I'm sure I can overcome it too. So it's
yeah,
just giving you that resilience, because the thing is like, oftentimes things happen in our life that seem bad, but then at the end of the day, it all happens for a reason. And it's those experiences that make you stronger and tougher. And so at the time, I was like, this is the worst thing that could happen to my life. Of course, it happened to me. Now I'm like, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have spent 6 years of my life studying human performance, productivity. I wouldn't be able to create the impact I have now in
sure.
other entrepreneurs' lives. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, I would just say like, at the time I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but I just realized it's what started the life I now live.
sure. Well, we do a lot of work with emotional intelligence, and that's one of the questions in there that they talk about, Adam, is they say when you're in that spot, whatever that tough spot is, ask yourself, what is the worst thing that can happen? And
Mm-hmm.
again, for you, it was death. I mean, you were at that spot. For most of us in our entrepreneurial journey, death is not like one of the options, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we may not make payroll or we may lose a customer. I mean, you start really breaking this down, and it's like, what is the worst that can happen? And a lot of times we're we're overcomplicating it. We're overthinking this. So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious now, talking to your clients, I got to believe that's pretty inspiring for them to
Mm-hmm.
realize that, wow, yeah, yeah, it could be a lot worse. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that that's some of the ways that you use your story.
Yeah, definitely. It's giving that more like perspective change. But some of that is kind of like what you already alluded to. It's like when it comes to anxiety, it's ultimately just stems from fear, right? And so there's a 3-step system to kill anxiety. And it's just, okay, what is the worst possible outcome that's going to happen as a result of this?
Yep.
accept that as if it's already happened, right? Like, and then the third is do what you can to improve the situation. But if you truly think of what is the worst possible outcome, you accept it. And that's probably the hardest part where most people don't go wrong. They don't accept it.
Right.
But if you can truly accept it as if it's already happened, then it frees up that mental space. And instead of having worry, fear, anxiety, now you can, number three, focus on that solution from a clear-headed mind perspective and actually improve your scenario. But yeah, definitely the stories gives people that perspective where they're like, okay, well, like, look, these problems that I'm currently facing right now, they're not really that big of problems, right?
Yeah. 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 But when you're in it, like you said, it's hard to see.
Yeah, you don't have that perspective.
Exactly. Because, I've been learning like our brain's number one duty is like self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks at the situation. A lion comes in your room right now. Do I fight it or do I flight? Do I run or do I attack that? And in that moment, it looks like it's the worst thing that could possibly happen, like you said. So how is your family through this? I'm just curious. Did you have a supportive network that helped you along?
Very, very, very supportive. So yeah, first of all, I have three older brothers. My parents were both alive. I had a girlfriend at the time. I still have a girlfriend, but different one. But anyways, they all came and supported me. So my girlfriend took off like 7 to 14. It was actually like 14 days off of work or something like that. Came, flew, stayed in the hospital with me the whole time.
Wow.
All my brothers, their girlfriends, wives, children, my mom, dad all stayed in one house together. So they got like a really big place. And yeah, like they were there for me for every aspect of it, whether it was in the ICU. After that, I got released and stayed with my mom. And I was like a little baby again. She had to like make my food, grind it up into like baby food texture, stuff like that. Like even my water wasn't normal water. We had to like make it like baby food texture for your water. Like I could flip my water up like this and it wouldn't even come out. Like I had almost like spoonfuls because like it would go down the wrong tubes if it wasn't in that texture and stuff.
Sure.
So, and then she drove me to all my appointments. I have speech therapy, physical therapy. I had to go to like 5 different appointments a week. And then one of my brothers took off like a week to help my mom during the beginning too. So like I had as good of a support system as I possibly could have. And that's a big part of why I was able to recover and get to the point where I did. So yeah, without them, oh my God, like if I was on my own, oh no, that would have been real brutal.
Wow. Do you stay in contact with the people that were in the movie theater that helped you?
They've reached out a few times. But the thing is, I'm in Southern California. They're like 10 hours away from me. So like we've texted a few times, but eventually it just kind of like fizzled out type of thing. Cause they're like, oh, you should come up sometime. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm very rarely going to be in that area,
Gotcha. What part of Southern California?
I'm in San Diego.
Oh, nice. We have a house in El Cajon.
Oh yeah. Nice. Yeah. San Diego's
Yes.
the best spot, man. It's crazy.
It's always 20 degrees warmer than it is down by you if you're close to the ocean. So we love being on the desert. That's awesome. Well, Adam, I want to ask you one last question. I'm going to let you go. What would your tip of the day be for somebody listening? And maybe it's something that we covered. Maybe it's something that's kind of just burning inside of you to share, but somebody really needs a word from you today. So what tip do you have as we close out today's podcast?
You create your habits, then your habits create your life.
Nice. You create your habits, and then your habits create your life.
Yeah, 95% of our actions happen subconsciously through your habits. It's why you've likely had times where you're driving and then you zone out for 5 to 10 minutes, only for you to magically appear at your destination with no conscious recall of how you got there. Your subconscious mind took over. So it's like if 95% of your actions happen subconsciously through your habits, well, guess what? That's going to be one of the number one factors in your success. What kind of habits do you have in place, right?
Wow, that's cool. And some people, when people hear habits, usually they think of it as a bad habit, right? We do have obviously good habits. And so, 100%. Find some good habits to get into, reading or journaling or whatever, meditation, whatever that is for you. Find some good habits because that then turns your life around. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, well, even more important than that, there are certain habits that are going to be, we call underlying foundational habits, where if you create these habits, it's essentially the most powerful habits you can form. So for example, one of them is like keeping your word to yourself, no matter what, 100% of the time. Because
Sure.
look, you only tell yourself you're going to do things that are going to improve your life. You never wake up and go, you know what, let me sit and watch Netflix all day and eat terrible food and not hit the gym. It's like, no, you tell yourself you're going to do things like eat healthy, work out, do things in your business that are going to improve your life. So if you form the one habit of keeping your promises to yourself, when you tell yourself you're going to work out, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to be productive in your business, do the hard work, you actually do it and you feel excited to do it. So a lot of times it's like people like, oh, I want to form the habit of going to the gym, or I want to form the habit of doing this. It's like, bro, if you form the habit of keeping your promise to yourself, you can create any change you want in your life effortlessly. And so it's like really forming the habit of having this 100% self-integrity is like one of the key foundational habits that are going to lead to the life and success you want.
Wow, that's so powerful. That is so cool. Well, Adam, if somebody's been inspired by you on this and they want to reach out to you and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, there's two different ways. If you're interested in working with me and my team, you can go to superhumanceo.com, or you can find me on Instagram and just send me a message there or comment on one of my posts, whatever. My Instagram is Adam Lucero, Lucero, then the number 1. So Adam Lucero 1.
Awesome. And for those of you that are on Apple or whatever you're on, if you want to jump on the positivepolarity.podcast.com, all of Adam's information is there. We'd love to hear from you and tell us how Adam helped you, because what an inspiring story. So hopefully the next time that you have that thought of like, oh my gosh, my life is over because, and you can think back to somebody that was laying in a movie theater, held together by a couple of old ladies in her t-shirt, and it'll hopefully put things into perspective for you. So thanks again, Adam, so much for being vulnerable, sharing your story. And I can't wait to keep learning from Superhuman CEO. Thanks again for jumping on with us.
Oh, I appreciate you having me here.